My name is Isaac Samancic, and I'm here with Kent Lewis. And we want to welcome you to Content Marketing for Senior Living. I am the Chief Storyteller at Conveyor. We're a content marketing agency here in Portland. And Kent Lewis is President of Anvil Media, digital marketing agency here in Portland as well. Kent, you want to introduce yourself?
Pleasure to be here today. Kent Lewis with Anvil Media, as was said, and Isaac and I go back to roughly 1999, so 18 years of working together. So we're the amplification side, and as you'll find out, Isaac will be talking more on the content development and strategy side, and here's some of our combined client list at the bottom of the screen.
Great. So let's jump in. Thank you again. Thanks for being here. What we want to cover today is really all about you, about senior living. So, breaking up. I'm sorry. I'm getting a note about audio quality. One second, please. You're dialed in over. Okay. What did you say?
We didn't fix the audio signal.
What's going on?
Choppy.
Okay. Sounds like the audio is breaking up. If people are having a difficulty, we may need to try something else. It may be that if you're having an internet or if you're having an audio problem, it may be the internet connection. You can also try dialing in to to one of the phone numbers presented there on the join me instruction. If you're using computer audio. Is it still breaking?
It might be both the microphones or to each other. Do you think that's it?
The two mics. Can you try and keep the one mic off and just talking into one mic?
Well, yeah, but there's only one going to the computer. So one's going to your phone, one's going to here. I can unplug you. You want to unplug yours? I mean, that's.
I would try that first.
Okay. Unplug that. Yeah. So we're going to record this. What I would suggest is if you're having a problem hearing the audio, try dialing in to the phone number instead of using your computer connection. You may get a clearer signal that way. We're going to proceed for the sake of the presentation. If you are having a problem, please type a question into the chat, and we will we'll look to address it. And Beth, if you can take a look at the chat, that'd be great. I see. Okay. Is that the only internet we can use? Is this the best internet connection we can use?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can try it.
Okay.
Hardware, though, so you have Tech 5.
It
shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Okay, so I'll continue, and I'll go slowly that people can hear. So why we're here today is basically the senior population is exploding in the United States. It's expected to grow by 65% in the next 18 years. That means that by the year 2035, there will be 65% more people. 1 out of 3 American households will actually be headed by someone over the age of 65. Every year in America, nearly 4 million seniors retire. Many of you know this because you're working in the industry. But obviously there's huge opportunity for growth, and we're here to help you drive sales in that way. All right. Next slide. So here's an interesting statistic. This just came out last week. It's about content marketing, and this is actually just about content marketing overall. But here are some of the different tactics you can use in marketing. And this study came out and basically said content marketing and SEO are 2 of the most difficult to execute, but most effective, as rated by marketers all over the world. This is a study done by Ascend2. They're an inbound marketing agency. You can see the stats here. The red is saying basically this is how effective we think it is, and the black is how difficult it is. One thing to take away is that a lot of these, right here, these second 2 rows, the content marketing and the SEO are viewed as most effective in terms of tactics by marketers, but they but they can be most challenging. And when they say challenging, it's not that they can't do them, it's just that these marketers don't have the time. And so one solution they're finding is to outsource content marketing and SEO to agency partners. Okay. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover personas. We're going to cover basics of content strategy for senior living. Look at some content types you can use. Then we'll look at ways to drive leads, and then I'll pass it over to Kent, and he'll talk more about amplification and how you amplify your content to really drive sales. Tools and tactics you can use for measuring and analytics, and then a little bit about customer loyalty and increasing customer loyalty with content. Okay, so personas. We're going to talk about personas. If you have worked with personas, this will be a little bit of review for you. If you haven't, they're a really interesting tool to use to better target your content marketing. So the idea is that obviously we know what a target audience is. A persona is a way of putting a face and a name to a target audience to really keep in mind what they care about, what their pains are, what their challenges are. We develop personas a lot for different types of clients, and we're going to show you some we've created for the industry here.
People are joining. That's the sound.
Okay. If you've just joined, welcome. We have a few people joining. We've just on the second slide, we're talking through personas. You are on mute, and we'll take questions at the end through the chat. So again, you want to include demographics on personas and really cover the objections, concerns, and key messages for reaching your audience. Why do we do this? Because we know that when you speak with one voice, with one topic, to everybody, you really connect with nobody. It's important to really hone your message for each audience you're talking with. Sometimes a brand will talk to 3 different types of customers. Other times they'll talk with 5 or 6 or 7. So, what's a persona look like? Well, there's lots of examples. These are a few scattered examples from different types of companies and different types of clients, but these are all created by marketing teams like yourselves to better refine what they're doing with their market messaging. So, you can see that, like down the lower left, the lower right, excuse me, like this persona is a design engineer. It covers his goals, his backgrounds, some objections he would have to buying from this product or service, and then even like an elevator pitch you would use for that type of person. Over on the upper left, you've got, like, let's say a growing family. Let's say you're selling real estate or you're selling some sort of service they would be interested in. You want to cover what do they care about, their heart. You want to cover the science, what's their demographics. You know, do they have kids? How old are they? What might be, is their income level? And then some messages that would work with them. There's different styles to do it. You can go to different depth, like the cyclist, very lightweight, but it's important to know who this person is. And you build these from interviews with customers or interviews with the sales team if you don't have customers you can talk to. Whatever kind of research you can use, you document this down. The key thing is you want to keep your customer firmly in mind, what they love, what they fear, what they want, and what they need. All right. So, as far as senior living goes, let's look at a few examples. These are personas you can use to create your content marketing. So here are 4 potential personas for senior living. We broke it out to 4 because we think these are 4 of the key audiences. You may think there are more. In fact, you may know you have other audiences you're speaking to, but these are 4 for the example of illustration today. So the first one is an adult child influencer. We're going to call her Karen. Then we've got adult peers. We've got retirees themselves who potentially will be the future residents of your senior living community or your assisted living community. And then caregivers who could potentially be part of an influencer or part of the decision, maybe not a primary decision maker. You can assemble these in a matrix while you're putting them together, but then what we do is we separate them into separate documents so each persona has its own. Usually 4 to 6 is a manageable number to use. Some organizations have as few as 2 or as many as like maybe a dozen. Once you get above that, they start to get blurred and confusing. But the way to know if they're different is if they require different marketing or different messages in terms of the approach you take with your content. So let's look at the first one. So if we look at adult child influencers, we call her Karen. This is just a stock photo, but she could be this person. So the adult child of a senior or someone potentially considering senior living community that's not in their own home. So Karen is going to be the primary decision maker for this family member, probably the one who's going to be doing the tour with them or helping with the documentation. Her concerns are the safety of her loved one. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's an aunt. That person's happiness and their lifestyle, their quality of life. What's it going to cost? Do they have the money in savings? You may want to highlight some of the lifestyle choices that are going to be available to her person. What's the nutrition like? What's the dining service like? She may be wanting to do deeper research on trends in nutrition to make sure that her aunt or her loved one is going to be in a good place. So this is a good target market for using Facebook, for using email, online reviews like Yelp and Google, or even things like services like Place for Mom are a great place to focus your efforts, because Karen is going to be using all of those as she's forming her opinions. And as we know, everybody who's read the Zero Moment of Truth, consumers are forming their opinions way before they reach out to us. So we, as marketers, we have to be getting ahead of the curve and making sure they get the information they need. One of the top messages you're going to want to try to embed in Karen's mind is that senior living is changing. It's not the quote-unquote old folks' home that people know. These are vibrant, exciting places with amazing food and really great quality of life in many cases. So, next persona. So this could be an adult peer. You give these folks a name. These could be friends of the person who's considering senior living. Maybe they still live at home, or maybe they've been friends for 20 years. They might be in senior living already. They might not. Maybe they're not quite ready for that. But they care for their friends. They're going to be thinking about safety and lifestyle and community. Very tight peer networks. They might be thinking about what their friends are going to deal with, and potentially what they might be dealing with 5 or 10 years down the road as they consider a senior living community themselves. Word of mouth is a great way to get across to these folks. Real brand building. They might be also just looking at traditional media outlets, TV news, maybe internet, maybe direct mail. But the key idea that you want to embed in these folks' mind is that senior living communities can be simple. They can offer simplicity and a quality of life with an active retirement setting. So I'll move a little quicker and get through these. So retirees, these are your target market right there. These are your potential residents, your future residents. A lot of things they're thinking about. I mean, this is Karen. This is a different photo, but this is sorry, not Karen. This is actually your target audience. And they're going to be looking at, am I independent? Does it meet my budget? Is this the quality of life I want? How big of a shift is it from what I'm currently doing or where I'm currently living? And they can be all over the place. These seniors are more and more using Facebook as a way to communicate with family and friends. They're going to be relying on friends and family's input. Traditional media like TV is also relevant. So again, simplicity and quality of life. You can define these even deeper. And then caregivers is the last one. So caregiver could be providing individual care to a senior, perhaps in their home now, and maybe they're the one who day to day is really in touch with the needs of the senior. They're concerned with their happiness and their safety. They tend to be younger than, a lot of them tend to be a little younger than the senior living target market demographic. They may be using internet and Facebook, mobile, whatever they can, they have mobile phones. And then word of mouth, word passes through the caregiver community about which communities are great, which ones treat residents well, and which ones are still have room to grow. And so you want to be obviously reinforcing those messages of safety and happiness and quality care. How are we doing? Are there any questions? All right. So here's just a quick stat just to refresh you. I don't know if you've seen this before, but speaking of those caregivers, there are 67,000 paid regulated long-term care providers serving 9 million people right now in the United States. It's a huge, huge audience, and they're everywhere. They're taking care of our seniors in addition to family and friends. So it's another thing to think about in that persona. All right, so we'll shift gears a little bit here, looking at time. So content strategy. Why do we do content strategy? Well, what does it mean? It's basically just planning out what you're going to publish before you do it. And it's to ensure that everything you do supports your business and your business goals, and that you're not just producing content for content's sake. So we'll cover a couple things here. So first, there's a content marketing business case. Why are we producing this? What's it for? We'll look at the business plan. How does this align with your overall business goals? Audience and personas and content maps. We just covered personas a little bit. And then there are brand stories you can use to bring your brand or your community to life. And then we'll look at like what a channel plan would look like. So, business case. What you need to cover here is on the left in a business case. You want to cover why you're creating content at all, what kind of stuff you're going to put out. Are you going to create articles, ebooks, videos? What is it you're going to share? Which audiences are you targeting? Again, that's where your personas fold in. Who will want to read this versus that? Who will want to read an article versus a research paper? When are you going to distribute it and where? And then how are you going to measure your efforts? Because if you don't measure it, obviously you don't know how you're doing. One thing you can use in terms of that why content and what you're going to create is a content strategy statement. This is one little tool you can use in your content strategy toolbox. And this is an example that you could use at your community or in your company to really orient what you're doing with your content strategy. So this says we're going to make content to attract senior residents by providing helpful information about assisted living communities to make people feel inspired and assured so that they can schedule a visit. Again, we're driving to sales. Why do we want content, and how is it going to power sales? Okay, the second thing is a business plan. Most of you have a business plan, or your company has a business plan. This is where you marry the business goals with your marketing goals and your marketing strategies. So content marketing is a huge piece of marketing now today. So is search, so is your web strategy, maybe your email, maybe your sales materials, social media. They can all be part of your marketing. But this is where you document all your tactics and approach, and then you cover the master measurement. Really, a business plan is probably the highest level of hierarchy in terms of these. So we looked at personas. But what you do with personas in that content map is you take those personas and you map them to what type of content you want to create. So obviously we know what they care about, their buying preferences, their selling messages. But then this is where you can identify, okay, what are the best content types for these folks? So if I'm trying to reach, let's say, millennials, or I'm trying to reach folks in their 30s and 40s, I want to make sure I've got social media and maybe email marketing, search on my list of content types or best channels to reach them. How's the audio? Is it okay? Okay, great. So brand stories. So these are really actually fun, and these are a great way to bring a human face and bring the human interest to your story as a brand. Brand stories can be told through text, through video, through words and pictures and infographics. This is just an example of a video we did with a senior retirement community, talking about one of the resident stories. It makes it human, and when you look at all of the charts and graphs, and you look at all of our goals, and how many pieces of content you create, it's important to remember at the center of good content is a story about a person, a human story, something that happened to someone. The way you use it for marketing is you make sure it's strategic to your business. So you want to highlight values of your company, or you want to highlight the character of your brand. Are you a welcoming family style place, or are you formal and are you high class, or are you the local the local community that's been part of the community for 50 years. You want to involve employees when you can. You want to involve maybe partners or caregivers, and certainly your customers, your residents. And there are all kinds of ways, as I said, print, video, photo essays. Those are really the core. Then once you have your stories, you know who you're sending them to and when and where. You document this in a channel plan. So this is an example of what a channel plan looks like. Not in great detail. You can't see the detail, but essentially it outlines every channel you have. Let's say it's your email channel, your social channel, your channels, your online website, maybe events that you do, and you calendar it out through every quarter and through weekly throughout the year, so you know what you're publishing and when. You know what vertical you're hitting, and you know what themes you're covering. Maybe the theme is holidays. Maybe the theme is summer fun. Maybe the theme is active living, or great food. Am I going too fast? All right. Okay. So let's look at some content types. So we talked about, there's lots of content types. As I said, in brand stories, lots of things you can do to tell those stories. Here are just a few ideas. So, and this is a mix of, you can consider some of these channels. Social media can be a channel. It can be a content type depending on how you write it. A tweet is just a few words. A Facebook post or can be paragraphs long, and certainly video is big with Instagram, YouTube, infographics. Case studies. The key piece is that you have one brand you need to communicate. You need to make sure you have a consistent message across all of these. We'll look at a few of these, some of the more interesting ones. You always want to be thinking, how are we going to deliver it, and how are we going to measure the success? So, first one. So your website, obviously at the center of many marketers' mind is, or at least at the center of their digital strategy is the website. It's sort of the hub of all your content. It's key to make it really search friendly because, as you know, the web is a big place and search is how we find everything. In order to keep it relevant, keep it at the top of your search results, you need to keep the content fresh. And I know Kent can speak to this in a moment. You want to measure the effectiveness by using analytics tools like Google Analytics. But ultimately, how many leads are you getting off of the website? This is an example of one of our clients, Holiday. And you can see they've made sure to make sure it's mobile friendly. Mobile friendly on any kind of device. So when folks are touring or they're considering something or they're having a conversation with a friend about where they're thinking about moving, you want to be able to make sure that your content is available to them. Another great content type is infographics. So infographics, I think we can thank, is it USA Today, who started really the infographic craze in the early 80s. But these have gotten more and more popular on the web. You see them shared on social media, Facebook. You see them in articles because they're fun to read, and they kind of blend the visual and the text. Really interesting information with good visuals that help you remember them. They're great for sharing. You see people share them all the time, and they can make some dry data fun. We all have a lot of dry information we want to share about our communities, and this is one way to spice that up. The way you can measure them is by how many people download them, how many people view them, and how many people share them. You typically don't charge for an infographic or ask them to give you an email address. So you really just want to see if this is engaging. And you can use these as print handouts as well. So they're portable to print. You can put them into your newsletter. You can put them on your website. They're really can be used in a lot of places. Bang. Okay. Video. This is another really emerging type. You're seeing more and more video everywhere. It's important to remember that the second largest search engine in the world is YouTube, part of the Google Alphabet family. Studies show that folks recall information 5 times better from video than they do when they read it. Obviously, they can send a video anywhere. It's a great way to bring those human stories to life again. Remember, the best stories involve people, something happening to someone. And you want to measure this by how many people viewed it, how many people shared it, what kind of exposure are you getting? I think we've all seen YouTube, what these million views videos on YouTube, and that's what we really all want to create because it's a great way to grow your brand. Again, you can port these into your social media. You can share them across your email newsletter and host them on your website, or embed them on your website in addition to on YouTube where they're best found. And you can archive them. They're evergreen content. If you don't put the date on them and you don't somehow make them instantly outdated, some videos can live 2, 3, 4 years and still be really interesting and fresh for people to see them on the first time. This is actually a story about a gentleman who was a founding member of the Harlem Globetrotters, and he moved into one of our clients' senior living communities in his 90s, and it was just a great story. He became a very popular guy at the community, and so we created this for the community to share some of what it's like there. They can really help with current resident engagement with your current residents, as well as with staff morale, because you can involve staff here and they get so proud because they really think of the residents as their family, and so they love being a part of these and seeing these stories come to life. Okay, another really popular one, and I think this is maybe the last one, but a really popular format we've been working with a lot is ebooks. So this is an example of an ebook that you can use for lead generation to drive sales. An ebook is typically prepared in a PDF format. It can be 4, 5, 6, 20 pages, whatever you have the content to share, or whatever length your content is. It's typically more valuable than what you're going to find on a blog article or on a web page, and that is why it makes a great lead gen asset. You can put it on your website and ask folks to download it by just entering their name and their email, or fill out a quick form, and you can, you give them something of value that they can use to think about and learn, and in exchange you have a new lead in your pipeline. Ebooks can include worksheets and graphics. Maybe cost calculators, self-evaluation forms. Is it time? Am I ready for senior living? That kind of thing, or just contact info that might be useful for sales, so they can fill out a form saying, yes, I'd like more information. Please contact me. They can include some of those graphics and infographics like we saw on the previous slide. You create those separately, but you can embed those infographics in an ebook. And the way, and Kent, if you have any thoughts on this, but one way you can learn what kind of ebooks you need to create is by doing research on your keyword search terms. So figuring out, doing some simple keyword research on the industry can help you know whether you should make an ebook about nutrition tips for seniors or an ebook about exercise for seniors. It's important to be in touch with what your audience is looking for. It's good? And last but not least, this, it's a hundreds-year-old format, but print books actually can be another great, really interesting way to create content and share it. With everything going digital, it's a great time to stand apart by having something that's not digital for once. So in addition to your digital content, you can build your brand by creating a cookbook. This is a cookbook that we helped create for a client. Where they actually, we did a survey. We had residents send in some of their favorite recipes from their lives that they'd shared with family over the years, and we took the best of the recipes and put them into, collected a series of them in this cookbook, and the company now uses it to get as a gift as part of the sales process. They can print them on demand, and they can be bought off of Amazon on demand through the website. You could collect recipes, you could collect resident stories, human stories like we talked about. You could make an anthology of community milestones, 50 years in the community, things like that. So that's another idea, and more communities are doing things like this now. It doesn't have to be a $1 million project. You can do these on a budget and still make them really professional. Okay, there is one more. I thought I was done. Articles. Don't want to forget the mainstay of fresh content on the web. So an article, sometimes even a blog post article, but an informational knowledge article that you can put on your website can really, one, boost your search results because you are using keywords that are useful to people. They're inexpensive to create. You need a good writing team or a content team or a writer, but it will improve the search results if you know what you're writing for and you're including things like nutrition or the common terms people want to find out. It helps build your brand reputation too, to share knowledge about what you do. It just helps to reinforce the idea that you know what you're talking about. So some of the ideas you can use are lifestyle, active living. Technology tips are really popular. 5 ways to use the iPad for research, things like that. And then even interviews with personalities, like we saw with the celebrity, the basketball player who moved in. So interviews with personalities can be really popular. Is there a question in the room? All right. Well, the one thing I'll say is that the articles, they are inexpensive to create, and they can be really easy to create cheaply. But one thing we've seen over the years is that poor quality content will actually bring poor search results and poor traffic, and they can hurt your brand. So if you're going to do it, you want to do it well. Okay, so we'll shift a little bit here into driving leads and talking a little bit about really, how we drive leads with content marketing. So I've touched on a little bit in the formats, but the idea is that with what content marketing allows you to do is take these inputs like brand storytelling, gated assets and conversion pages, web design and social, put them through your process, and what you can derive out of that is downloads, contact forms, and then ultimately qualified leads for your sales team. We firmly believe that marketing and sales have to work hand in hand, so that marketing isn't out doing one thing on, in the left hand, and sales over in the right hand is trying to find new leads. We want them to be working together, and ultimately for marketing to be driving leads for sales. If you're not familiar with the term gated assets and key conversion pages, gated assets just means like an ebook. We call it gated when we put it behind a form. So when we ask someone to fill out a form before they download the ebook PDF or the white paper PDF, that's called gated. An ungated asset would be a PDF they can have for free just by clicking on it. And again, the reason you would ask them to fill out a form is so you get on that right side, you get that qualified lead or a contact to go back to. Key conversion pages might be the landing page where you have that ebook or that white paper, or you have that form for them to fill, the contact form for a sales representative, etc. Okay, so I think we're doing on time. Kent, I'll hand this over to Kent, and we're going to talk a little bit about amplification of content.
All right, thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here. Now we've hopefully got a good foundation on what needs to be done to create a content strategy that's targeted at the right end user, and now we're going to talk about how to get it out there so they can actually see what you've spent so much time developing. So we're covering the 4 major buckets. These kind of are catch-all buckets, but we're going to touch on social media. We all know what that is. Organic search and local search, which has a much more localized feel, which is really important for senior care facilities. And then the paid media side, or advertising. And again, we're focusing primarily on digital at this point. So let's drop right into social media. So for starters, there are, the big 6 social media platforms that you've all heard of on, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Google+, etc., Facebook, but each one has a slightly different user base and slightly different functionality. So different functionality is preferable to different platforms, different age groups, demographics. So when we think about the senior living personas, we might spend a little more time on Facebook, a little less time on, possibly Instagram or LinkedIn. Again, if it's B2B, it might be LinkedIn. If it's B2C, it might be Facebook. And then, of course, there's Google. So when we go through the strategy process, we identify which platforms best match to the persona types, and we build out the profiles. optimizing them, things like the About section or Bio section of the profile that has the right keywords and location information. Make sure that we seed the site with reviews, as this example here, Glenwood Place, Senior Living, has a bunch of 5-star reviews. Interestingly, in the world of reviews, a perfect 5 stars out of 5 is not as credible as 4.8 or 4.5. I'm not suggesting you try and get a bunch of 1 and 2-star reviews, but if you have too few reviews, like that's 16 reviews in the example on the right, that's kind of borderline. Well, 16 people were paid, but when it gets up to 50 to 1,000 people, that's harder to buy everybody off. Then you want to figure out what your content calendar is, your cadence for the content that you or partners like Conveyor are creating for you, and throttle it out over time. So for instance, this webinar today is being live streamed, it'll be archived, and then the video or the presentation component may go on SlideShare, it may go on YouTube. So we're repurposing this content as an example, and you can do the same thing. And then there are a lot of different media formats. So you've got video, you've got animated GIFs, you've got imagery, you've got text, and then all the different ways you can mix and match those for optimal return. Now, moving on to organic search, obviously it's ideal to rank #1 for, say, senior living, senior care, Portland, Oregon, or wherever your location is. And yes, it is Oregon, not Oregon. And so the one thing that Isaac touched on earlier is the keyword research. So it's good to do keyword research to identify trends in content. What do people want? That's good for articles, blogging, ebooks, and so forth. But the first thing you want to do is own your own brand. So you want to optimize your website so that it is showing up for your brand and then what we call unbranded terms. So senior living, senior care facility, and then obviously geographically it's important to make sure you're ranking for modifiers like Portland or North Portland or certain neighborhoods. And so creating good content is #1. So the content is the hardest part of any optimization campaign. And having optimized sites for over 20 years, I can say that content is typically the stickler. We can only go so far with the code and the credibility factors that we'll touch on, but it's really all about the content. So create unique content. Avoid duplicate or common content per the chart below. There's a tool we use to identify the ratio of unique content to common or duplicate content. Obviously, Google is going to favor unique original content. Ensuring your site is responsive, it's fast, it's ADA compliant. So what that means is if you design for the disabled or the elderly, you're designing for Google. Google is relatively young, but it behaves like somebody who's blind. They can read text, they cannot fully understand images or videos, so they need context. So designing ADA-friendly, mobile, and fast websites is good on the code side. And then on the credibility side, it's securing relevant links from industry sites, popular sites, what we call a high domain authority. So a site like CNN or caring.com is going to do better than a local friend of yours posting a blog post that mentions your facility, but they have really no juice in Google. It's not going to help you as much. So on the upper right, we have a Google benchmark for the same, well, this one is for Milestone Retirement. They are mobile friendly, but their mobile and desktop speeds are slow. So what that translates into is a worse user experience, and most likely it would also translate into lower rankings, especially if your competitors have a faster site and a better experience. You also want to make sure you have a sitemap and a robot text file telling Google and other search engines where to go. And your 404 error page should be customized so you're not losing people to the white page of death. Which of course is the D word is verboten in this industry. So you want to make sure that your 404 error pages are driving back into your site. So all of those, the content, the code, and the credibility, the 3 C's of good SEO all come together to really help you maximize your visibility in organic search, which is sort of the holy grail. It should be driving a lot of your good leads. Next up, and arguably that last mile is so important, 30% of all searches have a local intent, and a lot of your leads are coming from localized searches. The interesting thing about this industry, it's not unlike hospitality, where it doesn't do me a lot of good to optimize a hotel for the Portland market when most of the people are coming from out of the market. Senior care is a little different. You're going to have a majority perhaps in market or in the region, but you're going to have some folks that are, their children or caregivers are searching for living, some sort of senior living care facility near their current house, but they're across the country. So it's important to show up in Google Maps, or what we call Google My Business. So the listing on the right for Glenwood Place, you can see only 3 reviews, but 5 stars. You can see the address, phone. There's also caring.com, 4.2 out of 5. So it's important to claim the listings, some good images up that are compelling, and then monitor and manage the reviews. We have a whole article that we're tweeting out related to this, and we'll follow up in emails for those of you on the webinar that signed up. We'll get you an email with related links, including how to manage local listings and reviews for your senior care facility article we wrote for A Place for Mom. And there are other sort of directories and industry sites that you can submit to. So there's general business sites, and then there are industry vertical sites like caring.com, and just the major directories that power Google Maps, Apple Maps, and all of those. So for driving directions, making sure they can find your location is absolutely important. And then on the managing the reviews site, there's all the senior care sites like caring.com, A Place for Mom. You need to manage proactively those reviews, address negative reviews, solicit positive reviews without incentivizing, because you can get in trouble. Also, you want to make sure that you're hitting the big business review sites like Yelp. For every star that you lose on Yelp, you're losing about 9% of your revenue. So you can start with 5 stars, and you go down to 3 stars, you're down 18% on your revenue. So managing these reviews is absolutely essential. You cannot afford to ignore your reviews. And talking about paid media, this is typically the way, buying your way into Google, into Facebook/Instagram and other search and social platforms is the way to fill the gaps. If you have occupancy issues, then paid is a great way to quickly fill the gap. We've been managing hotels and secondarily senior living and other inventory-based clientele for many, many years. And, the idea is you spend until you get your 99% occupancy, then you can suspend your advertising as needed to get the maximum return. So the first place to start would be Google and doing geo-targeted ads so that you own your market within a 10, 20, 50, 100-mile radius, whatever is relevant for that market, how far people are willing to drive. And then there's the out-of-market searches for local within a certain area that you also want to hit for those folks that may not know Portland, but know they have grandparents or elderly family here that need care. And they're doing their research there. So you can geo-target your ads based on latitude, longitude, zip code, proximity, radius, you name it. And then the other important part of why Google is one of the wealthier companies on the planet is because you can, when you're targeting based on keywords like senior care facility, these people are way down the funnel. They're ready to buy. They need a place, and oftentimes with senior care, you might have a 0 to 3 month lead time. If somebody turns ill in a quickly, or Alzheimer's or whatever it is, you need to find a place quickly. So Google is a great place to find those folks. The next step would be to go 1 degree out on your target, to use display ads and retargeting. So display ads are affordable, and it's a great way to get your brand in front of folks, so it's not that standard text ad that's not quite as engaging visually. And then people actually click through and hit your site, then you cookie them, and you can actually hit them with ads in the Google Display Network all over the internet, on CNN and wherever else they're going, and they just think, wow, this senior care facility must be huge, or have unlimited deep pockets, which means they're going to take better care of my grandfather. Or something like that. Enhancing your ROI. So one other way to do that, of course, is increase your targetability with social platforms like Facebook/Instagram. And the idea there is you have something like 50 different criteria you can target on Facebook and hit any different type. Do you have family? Do you have elderly? Do you have a disposable income? Where do you live? What are your interests? So we can laser focus on nearly down to the individual level on social media. It can be expensive, but it's highly targeted, so the cost per acquisition can be very affordable. So you can see on the right side, We can use tools to see roughly what the value of organic traffic is in the upper right, or what an equivalent media spend needs to be to drive a certain amount of traffic. And if you're good at what you do, you know how many visitors you need to get a lead, and then you can figure out how much you need to spend or how much more traffic you need to optimize for organically. The middle shot is of a Pacific Senior Living is a local business here in Portland, and you can see they have their move-in specials, calls to action, benefit statements, and then they have the extended site links, which are linked to their photo gallery, living options, all that. So it takes up some real estate, but it has a lot of interactivity, a lot of different ways, goes straight to floor plans, for instance. Pretty powerful stuff. That's just a standard text ad that was geo-targeted in some fashion. And then inbound clicks from Google, you can see kind of your mix. We've had clients that want a 50-50 mix of organic versus paid. In my ideal world, almost all your traffic comes from organic, but the reality is almost no company can pull that off. So you need to augment with some sort of paid program to get the occupancy rates that you need. Go ahead. And let's talk a little bit about metrics and analysis. So there are a lot of different elements you can measure, particularly through Google Analytics. You can also use tools like Google Search Console primarily for organic search, and look for what traffic is being driven and what pages are working and what are not working, any errors with your site. But this is a shot from Google, and you can see generally like where people are coming from, how long they're staying, what percentage are new. Bounce rate is important to know how many people are leaving the site. Pages per session, so are they going deep or are they going shallow? For researching senior care, you'd want to see more than 3 pages. This one's 2.89. If you're a publisher, you want the biggest number. If you're e-commerce, it doesn't matter how many pages they visit as long as they're buying. An average session, I don't know if a minute is enough to make a $3,000 to $5,000 a month decision. So these are the numbers you have to look at. And working with an agency, we provide something that an internal person couldn't, which is perspective. Because we have 70 clients, we can see roughly what's going on across clients and trends and changes in the industry or in the internet in general, and then make sure that that we identify opportunities and challenges. So again, the top metrics are on the left. Page views, they're worth about what you can throw, how far you can throw them, but I think referral sources is very important to know. Is your email or is social driving good leads? So it's not the volume so much as the quality. Inbound links, bounce rates, again, that shows the higher the bounce rate, the bigger the problem you have, so you need to clean up the user experience. And conversion rate at the end of the day that generates a certain quality of lead is what's going to matter most at the end of the day for your core metrics. So let's talk a little bit about tools. We're going to take a very high-level view of this. There's the all the way through the kind of the top to bottom, front to back. So on the sales and marketing automation side, we use a platform called Act-On that happens to be based here in Portland. Been using it for many, many years. And the idea is that it's fairly easy to set up. So it's a lead capture, nurture, and communication platform. So it's basically an email platform on steroids. It allows you to create content and deliver it based on action. So you can qualify and nurture leads. The challenge, of course, you can't use Act-On or any other marketing automation platform, including HubSpot, without content. So that goes back to the whole point of this presentation is you can't do SEO without content. You can't do any sort of marketing automation without content, because you could have all these great triggers set up to figure out if somebody's a qualified lead, but you have to send them something for them to react and trigger the benefits of a platform like that. HubSpot's more of a self-contained platform where you are, where they can offer to create the content for you. I would say think quantity over quality. It's a different approach, lower cost entry level approach to your marketing automation. Real quick, and then CRM. This is your basically customer relationship management. This is for the entire life of the client. So SharpSpring and Salesforce, we'll touch on those. And then lastly, the measurement. So we did touch on that in the previous slide, but the idea is that you want to measure and manage, right? You measure twice, cut once, not the other way around. So I've written an article, and we'll include this in the follow-up. Basically, Our experience with sales and marketing platforms, marketing automation platforms in the last 8+ years is that it really starts with the people. Does your facility or your organization have the culture to embrace technology like Acton, HubSpot, or even Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot? It's all a bunch of foreign, crazy-sounding words, but they're all competitors in the same space, which is you have to have the people. If your people do not support the concept of creating content to nurture and automate this process, it's not going to work. You've got to create the product, which is content. Content drives everything. The process ensures the content gets done and gets out. The people that manage it are also need to be obviously trained and excited about what they're doing, and executives need to support the effort. And lastly, people always start with the platform. I end with the platform. The platform is the least important component. That is because I am not paid well, technically Acton is a client, full disclosure, but notice I'm mentioning their competitors too. The point is that this is the last mile. The platform is the enabler. It is not the solution. The solution is the people, the products, and the process, and the platform just makes it all happen. It is a very important component, but it doesn't matter if you have a platform and nobody to run it, no content, and no process to support it. It doesn't really matter. On the CRM side of things, SharpScreen is extremely affordable. It's a little bit of marketing automation and a whole lot of CRM. They have month-to-month contracts, which is unusual. Usually you want to go for the annual contract once you know you're committed to save a few points. And then Salesforce is kind of the granddaddy of them all. They used to be known as sales automation, but now they've repositioned beyond marketing automation into CRM. So the entire customer life cycle is what they manage. And if you're a sales-driven organization, aggressively, like multi-units, many multi-unit locations, Salesforce is probably already integrated, or you would probably be on Microsoft Dynamics because that's fairly popular. They have a whole healthcare vertical, as does Salesforce. They have the Health Cloud, so you can leverage a lot of their functionality unique to senior care and medical care. And measurement last. So Google Search Console, as I alluded to earlier, got a little too excited, I'll be honest, about how cool this stuff is. But Google Search Console is all about analyzing where you're showing up in search, who's clicking, and by that I mean generally which listings in the search results you are ranking for, generating any traffic. If there are any critical errors with your site, they will tell you. You can run a variety of tests. It'll kind of give you a sense of what content is working. And they have, give you some guidance on your structured data, which is important. If you don't use structured markup to identify what your data or your content is, it's going to be hard to rank. And of course, Google Analytics provides that last mile. There is a more premium capability, but free is going to get you 90% of the way there. And you can create custom funnels and segments and, different campaigns and very easily sub-segment out which of your marketing efforts are generating the right conversions, especially if you plug all this into your sales and marketing automation or your CRM. So let's touch briefly on customer loyalty, and we can hand over here. But basically, there's the idea of, you've captured that lead, and as a marketing organization, we're hunters. We go find the quality leads and hand them to our clients. Well, it's really important that the clients, our clients, you, senior care folks, have some sort of stickiness to your content. So, and this can be all the way through the sales process, but I'm thinking longer term relationship development is, what is your point of view? Bring in some of the experts within the network, some of your partners, timely topics that are, what's going on there's Trump care going on and what's going on with Obamacare. Now is a scary time for many people, not sure what's going on and how they're going to pay for their medical for the rest of their lives. This is an opportunity to earn a lot of trust. There's a lot of themed content that you can create. So for example, this webinar, we could break up a 1-hour webinar into 10 or 6 or 4 different segments and roll them out individually on YouTube as a 4-part series, and then create a playlist on YouTube, and you've got the same benefit, but we have less attention span than a goldfish these days. So short and sweet, less is more. But make sure all your content aligned to a more strategic goal. It's not just getting a bunch of interns in a room, seeing how much content they produce, or assuming that AI is going to solve all your problems and randomly generate articles that have value. When it comes to surveys, I think it's really nice to ask your constituents the caregivers, the four different personas we covered. What do they want? When do they want it? What format? What media type? The frequency and how you deliver it. All of that is what you can ask in surveys. It's cheaper than focus groups. It shows that you care, especially when you deliver on what they've asked for. It's particularly poignant. I'll give us an unrelated example. When I was in the e-commerce side of things 15, 16 years ago, I assumed that our clients wanted monthly, or consumer electronics customers, fans that subscribe to our newsletter wanted monthly updates on how to use a digital camera and set up your TV, and what they want is a weekly update, what's new and what's on sale. So get to know your customers and make sure you're giving them the content they want, and that you can then measure the results quantifiably, and it helps for future budget planning and attributing what sales